right, episode 0. We are here.
How's it going?
How's it going, everybody? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Welcome to episode 0, the ground floor for the Glad Trad podcast.
Glad Trads.
That's us. We're not mad trads.
Not yet.
Not yeah.
Yet.
Maybe there'll be a devolution, throughout this whole thing, little by little. By episode 100, like, welcome to Glad Trad podcast. We'll put the cigarette here. My name is Jordan Pacheco.
And I'm Rodolfo Carlos.
And this podcast is going to be focused on, there's a lot of things that traditionalists, and I would say now especially even what might be considered before conservatives in the church, should be concerned about. We are certainly going through a lot of very dark days with the Summer of Shame behind us, with the recent Amazon Synod. There are church closures all over the place, a lot of bad stuff. So we wanted to focus on some positive things, because even though we are in a dark place, sure, there are also a lot of very positive things happening in the church that might make you just a little bit happier throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of good news, and if it's not being reported, then it's still going on. We have the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass. That's a great thing. It's easy to forget, amidst all the scandal and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. We wanted to make this podcast to focus on the good things, because it's very easy to focus on the bad. And as you probably experience in your own life, if you focus too much on the bad, it spoils everything.
There's also, absolutely right. And there's also this prerogative, I think, amongst traditional Catholics nowadays that, sure, we could talk about all the bad things that are going on in the church, maybe in your own parishes and old parishes. But there's also this rising star of tradition, and it's happening not just here in the United States, it's happening abroad. There are more and more Catholics, especially young Catholics, who are being woken up to the sorts of abuses going on, and they know that the best way they can fix it is, as Rudy said, discovering the Usus Antiquior, discovering the beauty of the traditional Mass, traditional liturgy, and the traditional Catholic way of thinking. There are a lot of little micro Thomists running around now, which is probably something that a lot of people 50 years ago would never have envisioned again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, people are realizing that they have to feed themselves before they can go out and affect the culture, et cetera, et cetera. And I think a lot of people are looking for tradition and authentic Catholicity. So I think that has something to do with the rise of traditionalism, with a small t.
Also, we have the best memes. You ever notice that?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, there's
we're in a twilight of authentic Catholic media culture, and that also includes kind of a new sort of Catholic art coming around too.
Yeah, it's a very strange evangelization with memes. Could you even call it that? I'm not even.
I think so. I think so. Listen,
yeah.
I think
some of them are. Yeah.
Later on the show, we have to have. There are two young teenage girls still, actually, or very very young adult, who go to our church, our parish.
Oh yes,
and
that's
we
right.
we attend St. Vitus, which is the fraternity of St. Peter's residential home here in beautiful Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Deo gratias, because it took a second for us to get that church, right?
Yeah.
And so what's funny point being is that with these two young ladies is that I believe that they are a third at least of the Catholic meme empire on Instagram. I know it's hard.
Yeah. I wish you could see my face right now, because I just had a moment where I realized that is true. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what's nice about it is that, so when we talk about evangelization, this is like the new evangelization. There are people that we follow now who have YouTube channels, and there are new podcasts going up, including this one. And also there are people who are using, I think, very like the cultural elements such as memes to bring a Catholic kind of face and a Catholic sort of humor. I think guys like G.K. Chesterton would be proud, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. and it's a great way to reach a lot of people. People are plugged in, whether they know it or not. They may encounter something that is Catholic. And humor, I think, is the best doorway to enter into some of these things. So, yeah, absolutely.
That's going to have to be its own other episode, huh? Humor in the Catholic Church was just going to be like G.K. Chesterton, the musical.
Yeah.
So today on Glad Trads, we are going to be talking about some real positive news. As I've said before, we attend a fraternity of St. Peter Church. And if you don't know what that is, if you're listening for the first time and you don't know what the FSSP is, the fraternity of St. Peter is essentially an organization of priests inside the Catholic Church whose entire dedication is the preservation and promulgation of the Roman Rite, the traditional Latin Mass that has been used for thousands of years, but the form that we know of is most common from my boy, St. Pius V, promulgated at the Council of Trent. That sounds about right.
I believe so, yes. If you're unfamiliar of what that means still, if you take a look at your typical Catholic Mass today, you're probably going to the new rite, which is a result of various different liturgical changes that took place in the 60s and 70s. And the traditional Latin Mass that we attend has most of the unchanged elements of the Latin Mass, of the Mass itself, before these liturgical changes took place. So it's not just a commemoration, but rather it's the Mass is unified. It's united to the sacrifice of Christ that still goes on today. It's outside of time. It's timeless.
Oftentimes the Latin Mass is described as the Mass of the ages and the Mass for the ages. Mm-hmm. And it's funny to think about, but this is something that you see the traditional rite, and it literally connects us to ancestors hundreds, if not thousands of years dead. This is a kind of Mass, even though it's some of its forms and functionalities, obviously with the slow marring of tradition, will change very, very small and very, very incrementally. And all of these pointed towards God, which is wonderful and probably one of the most distinctive elements about it. So you're looking at a Mass that very well St. Augustine would have understood, St. Thomas More would have understood, St. Thomas Aquinas would have understood. Mm-hmm. This is a Mass that my grandparents were born and baptized in and lived all the way up until young adults in that rite. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that this is the Mass that literally from sea to shining sea, from coast to coast, was the Mass for the Roman Catholic Church. And it's great now that in these times, it's coming back in full swing and it's being lifted up by a lot of young people. So with that being said, what we have found in order to kind of support that sort of thing is an article, actually, and this comes from the Missive, which is the Fraternity of St. Peter's, how'd you say, like kind of their own newspaper, isn't it? Their own blog?
Yeah, I think it's their newsletter.
Mm-hmm. It's a newsletter. That's a good way of calling it, yeah.
So they share all kinds of different news within the fraternity. And they had this article that came out, I believe, earlier in October, where they discussed some of the growth that's taking place in the traditional parishes. And we have some of the numbers here. For example, at our parish, we started at about 250 people averaging per Mass. And that was in the early part of 2018. And it quickly doubled to about 500 people. So much so that they had to add even more Masses. The apostolate of the Fraternity of St. Peter had to find a church, and they found a permanent location in the valley, which is kind of where we're situated now.
What's nice about that too is, remember, it's about 500 people, and when we talk about per Mass, there are now 2 high Masses or sung solemn Masses, and then there are 2 low Masses. And especially at the high Masses, we have to put out chairs in the vestibule because there's too many of us. We keep piling out. So if you don't arrive there half an hour before Mass, it's one of those you're not going to get a seat.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem though.
It's a great problem.
I don't think I've ever been frustrated by that at all. I think it's just so amazing to see a parish bursting at the seams when you're used to seeing half empty kind of churches. People aren't going to Mass, and this and that. And you see people are on fire.
Yeah,
they're
very
on
much
fire with their faith.
Yeah.
So it's very rewarding and enriching for your soul to see that. In places like Florida, like for example, there's an apostolate of the fraternity in Naples, Florida. There's a 20% growth. There's also in Philadelphia and Rhode Island, respectively. They started off from nothing. Now Philadelphia has 400 parishioners, regular parishioners. Rhode Island going up to 300. Another statistic here is St. Anne Parish, which is an apostolate in San Diego. And it was established in 2008. And despite only having 200 or room for about 200 adults, it had reached up to about 800 parishioners by 2018, with now 3 priests serving offering 5 Sunday masses.
Mhm.
Now they're averaging over 1,000 people.
So we had a particular priest out from the fraternity who is in charge of monitoring and determining the fraternity's developmental growth.
Mhm.
Essentially, where are they going to build new parishes, or where are they going to be invited in by bishops, which is what has to happen if you are a priest of the fraternity of St. Peter. The bishop of the diocese invites you in. And then they also determine what current churches they have that they want to shore up. And what he was telling us is that this year in particular has been one of the best growth years for the fraternity. Ever since Pope Benedict's Summorum Pontificum in 2008, it's just been an explosion of growth. And these past couple of years, even with our own parish, I mean, we have, what is that? That's a 50% growth in a year, steady average. And it's climbing, by the way. There's always new people. Across the whole fraternity, it seems to be about a 25 to 30% growth this past year, 2 years. And what's funny is that it's all driven by the same thing. There are plenty of Catholics and even non-Catholics who are converting. Because, for instance, I had never met an Orthodox convert until I came to the traditional Latin Mass. Now, 2 friends of ours are Orthodox converts, which is really kind of exciting to think about. And so what's funny is, like, in our parish, there's like plenty of people who are, a lot of them were lapsed Catholics that rediscovered tradition. Some of them are Catholics who needed something more. There are, of course, Protestants, atheists. I met an atheist who got converted by Father Ripperger, of all people. He got talked into a psychology conference, in quotes, from Father Ripperger by a friend, and he tried to challenge him a little bit and got floored, and had the grace of God enough to start searching for answers. I know growing up, I always thought that Latin Rite Catholics or traditional Catholics were always kind of a weird group somewhere in the sticks of Kansas or Indiana or someplace. And that it was just a generational kind of thing. I didn't realize that actually there's a great migration going on of especially young Catholics, but just Catholics across the board, wanting to rediscover their Orthodoxy, who are moving now in droves, as we've seen, to the traditional Latin Mass and to better Orthodoxy. And so I figured we'd just share our stories a little bit, and maybe that'll help you if you're in a place where you're deciding if going to the traditional Latin Mass is the right way to go for your own spiritual life.
So for me, I grew up in the new rite of the Mass, which is called the Novus Ordo, and I kind of started a little bit later in my life. I was about 20 years old when I decided that I wanted to be a little more serious about my faith. I had a moment that was really a supernatural, grace-filled moment where I was at Mass one day. I was going to Mass at the time to go with my father because I pitied him and I didn't want him to be alone. And so I was going specifically just to be with my dad. And I remember, I'll never forget this day. It was a Sunday Mass. I was at the cathedral here in Los Angeles, and there was a priest there that was speaking during the homily about having an openness to God and having an open heart to receive God. And I received at that moment just a very interesting sensation of burning desire in my heart. And it was a slow burn. It wasn't anything like a matchstick, igniting on fire immediatay.
You weren't St. Paul to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. It was a smolder. And so over time, I started getting a little more serious about my faith. I went into RCIA so that I could receive my first Holy Communion. And after that, I was on fire, really. And I think that happens to a lot of people when they first, start to take their faith a little bit more seriously. They have like all of these different graces, I think, for the most part. Mm-hmm. And the danger is when you start burning out a little bit. Luckily for me, that didn't happen. I was on fire. I started, discerning a vocation, and, I wanted to serve. And so I started serving and doing all these things. And about 5 years later of doing those sorts of things, being more active in the parish and really falling in love with the Mass, falling in love with faith, I started to realize that there was a lot of things that didn't make sense. And this is a Glad Trad podcast, so I'm not going to go into detail, but, it got to the point where I started to notice that it was a thief of peace to go to Mass and to see certain little liturgical abuses taking place, not just at my home parish, but just at any Mass that I went to. There was always something, And I remembered in the back of my head that one of my friends, Jordan Pacheco, he was going to the Latin Mass.
How's it going?
And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it a try again. And I went there. I was a little lost, I'll be honest with you, the first time, trying to figure out what a missal is and how to get to the proper of the Mass and all that stuff and all the readings. But, if there's any advice that I could give, if you're a first timer, just go and just enjoy the Mass. Like, just be present, There's a lot of talk about active participation, but the most active participation you can give is to just open your heart to be in that moment and realize that there's something going on that's greater than you. It's greater than you singing along. It's greater than you reading the reading, etc. Those things are good, yes. But yeah, I'll never forget. I was lost. I was a little lost, and at the end of it, I just realized that I really found something.
Mm-hmm.
I found something special, and I kept going, and I would tell my fiance, oh yeah, I went to the Latin Mass today, and she would ask me, how is it? It's great. And eventually, there was something building inside of me, and I wanted to tell her, like, I want to be here. I want this like forever. I want this for the rest of my life, and it was a nerve-wracking conversation to have with her, because initially I think she had the same stumbling blocks when she came over. She was saying, oh, this is a little confusing. I'm not sure. I'm a little lost, and, as somebody who doesn't want to, plant an idea and be forceful about it. I was like, she'll figure it out. Maybe there's an opportunity there. And a few weeks after that, we had started going there, frequently, a couple Sunday masses. We were driving in the car together. We were going to brunch, and I leaned over to Ashley and I was like, well, what did you think of the Mass? And she was like, you know what? I'm starting to get it, and I love it. And I was like, okay, well, what would you think about doing this, making this our whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, yes, let's do it. And it was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, because we were trying to figure out, okay, we had just recently gotten engaged, and I was thinking, okay, well, like, where are we going to get our marriage preparation done?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going to go? Where are we going to do that? There was another parish that we decided we were going to do that at. We love the priest there, really Orthodox, solid guy. And, we're going to do that. And then when she told me that she was down for the TLM, I was like, well, why don't we just do it there? Why don't we just do it there? And she's like, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to influence your decision, but I think we should do it too. And I was like, that's funny, because that was my approach. I didn't want to influence your decision. Uh-huh. But it seems like this is the right place to be, and we're here and we're in love with it. We've really grown to appreciate the Latin Mass, appreciate the fraternity. We've gotten to meet so many incredible people, yourself included, and all kinds of different families. And one of the other things that really struck me of starting to go to the Latin Mass, it was the first thing I texted to Ashley. I told her, hey babe, all of the families are here. All of the young families are here.
Absolutely.
I was floored, because I entered and I was like, this is insane. There are so many families. There's so many babies here. There's so many, and not just like old people, like young people, like our age.
Absolutely.
And I was like, wow, this is where everybody is. So it was a really wholesome kind of, outcome to crossing the Tiber, so to say.
I was extremely happy when you came, by the way.
Thanks.
Because my story, which I think is a little less turbulent.
Yeah.
I grew up like you in the Novus Ordo. I was an altar server since I was young. I think I was a lector at some point, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. I've always had an ear for history. Mm-hmm. Loved the history of the church. I was uber into the Crusades. Right now I'm into early church history. I loved the look, the smells, the bells, you could say. And I didn't get any of that really at the parishes where I was growing up. Except for one place in particular, and I've only gone to it once, but in Denver, Colorado, we have a cathedral basilica of the Immaculate Conception, and it's beautiful architecture. But of course, since we live in the West, our churches look like shacks because the wind in Buffalo might blow them down. But when I was in late high school, I had a Polish priest who was extremely influential in my life, and he is a very righteous and orthodox priest, the right kind of priest. And because he's Polish, also that just helps reinforce it. And that made such a tremendous influence on my life. I began dressing better for Mass. I'd always believed that the Eucharist was the source and summit of the Christian life. I'd always believed that it was Jesus. So I really began to look at it as receiving a king. And I also remember I had attended a couple of Latin Masses at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Littleton, Colorado, which is a very beautiful Gothic kind of Baroque church. And that's a fraternity church as well. So, hey, fraternity's been in Colorado for a while now. All right.
That's awesome.
So I remember out here in California, when I got here, I was attending the Novus Ordo again, and I just wasn't really feeling fed after a while. I won't go into too many details because it's the Glad Trad podcast. But I'm sure that for many of our listeners, we all know that kind of moment where the faith we know is real, but there's that sort of barrier that we need to get past. That thing that unlocks us, that really transcends to the plane of heaven, where the Mass does, you see the sacrifice of Calvary every single time. And also you see that it is a Mass of the ages. So I Googled Latin Mass near me. I found the fraternity originally at St. Victor's in Hollywood, now at St. Vitus. And I remember I went there, and the asparagus got me.
Man.
Oh, I was in tears for that asparagus. I'd never heard anything so beautiful in my life in a church.
It's my favorite part of Mass.
It's my favorite. It is every single time, because the idea of Mass is very simple. It is the most profound moment in all of history. And it's actually not even just a historical footnote. It is something that is happening all the time because it is locked into Christ's eternal sacrifice. This is a moment where quite literally heaven and earth meet, and it meets there at the transubstantiation on the altar. And so everything, and so the history of the church is very good about this, right? It's art, architecture, it's culture, it's teaching, all of it points to heaven. And so when you go to a traditional Latin Mass, even if it's one that's happening just in, the most like podunk gym looking church that the diocese has been kind enough to lend the fraternity, you see just by the Mass itself that it points to heaven. The way that the priest looks, the way the servers look, the way the incense, the way the bells, everything. And remember that these external factors all point towards our inward dispositions. And ultimately they point to God and how he sheds his graces upon the faithful. So I went and I was like, I can't go back. But what's funny is that one thing that I think would be very, very important for people who are considering is you have to also face the fact that there's going to be there's going to be a time when you're going to feel like the only one. Now, Latin Masses you go to, at least if you're, especially the ones out here, Rudy's absolutely right. They're vibrant. They're full of young people and families. It is so, I didn't realize this before. Maybe it's because I'm getting older and we're now vocationally geared towards fatherhood, you and I. Mm-hmm. The sound of babies, and a lot of babies in Mass, because what does Taylor Marshall say?
If your parish isn't crying, it's dying.
If your parish isn't crying, it's dying. It's true.
It's true.
And these priests are so good about it, which is something that was really nice to see. These priests know that, and you can just feel the graces that God is outpouring from the priests onto the faithful. It's true. You don't speak Latin. I don't know anybody who speaks Latin fluently. Maybe a couple people, actually, now thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But just a couple. And so my advice, I think, for people who are attending Latin Mass is, first off, you're going to be lost the very first one you're going to go to. Yeah. And especially if you go to a low Mass instead of a high Mass, I think that the first Mass you should go to is a high Mass or a solemn sung Mass.
I agree.
So find the Mass where you can see everything on God's green earth on parade is the best kind of thing. And you're going to be lost. Being lost doesn't mean that you are not participating or that your heart isn't fully formed to the Mass. Conform your heart to what's going on the altar, and that gives the greatest glory to God you could possibly imagine. You don't need to know every single individual word that the priest is saying. You can. There are plenty of resources to do so. A lot of parishes are very good about supplying those resources themselves. You can go online and you can get essentially missals for free. You can see the reading, see what the priest is saying. Or you could just buy a missal outright, and maybe we'll do an episode on what sort of missals we like. But it's okay. It's okay to sit back and realize what a sanctus sounds like, to realize what an asperge is, what the priest is chanting, where you stand, where you sit, where you cross yourselves. I mean, all the forms and functions that make Catholicism are going to be on display. The second thing is that it's going to be kind of hard, I think. It was certainly one of the most hard things for me was coming back to my friends, and I'd known Rudy since I had been out here in Los Angeles, coming back and explaining to them, or especially explaining to your family, the beauties of the traditional liturgy. And they might just not be there yet.
I can tell you horror stories about that.
Oh my gosh. I don't have horror stories. I have that's nice, dear kind of stories.
I wish
You
I
know?
had those.
Oh man. You're going to get different reactions. There's some people who are going to think that that's wonderful for you, even if that's not particularly for them. There's going to be some people who probably are going to have an allergic reaction, and they're probably going to start calling you all sorts of names. As we're very much aware as traditional Catholics, what that can be like. The answer is that the traditional liturgy isn't supposed to be like a badge of honor and courage that you now wear all the time. One thing I really like about traditional parishes, and maybe you've seen this, is this. It seems like the confession line before every single mass is out the door.
Yes.
And it's funny because there are parishes that are like 10 times the size.
And I love that.
I love it.
That's great.
The Latin Mass makes me realize how much of a sinner I am. He makes me realize how much I need God. I'm like I am not worthy.
You know what's the worst is when you're sitting in Mass, and in the homily the priest will say something and he'll just totally call you out on something that you didn't even think about.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, I can't receive our blessed Lord today. I'm not inwardly disposed to do that.
That's right.
And
That's
it's
right.
just you grow and you learn, and it's awesome. You know what? I was thinking while you were saying that, there's sometimes a stigma too, like, oh, if I go to a traditional Mass, I'm gonna run into all these trads, and trads, like, oh man, they're so angry, like, what, they're not even, what am I gonna do, like,
they'll eat me alive.
Yeah,
they'll smell the Novus Ordo on me and get scared.
They'll smell the sin on me. No, but you know what? I've had an opportunity. I think I've been on both sides, where I was lost and people kind of directed me on what to do, or you can look over to your neighbor and see what they're doing. And there's always somebody who knows almost everything, so you could look at them and, oh, I'm supposed to stand here. Oh, I'm supposed to kneel here. Oh, okay, they're reading this part. Oh, whatever. But I've had the opportunity too, where I've noticed that there's new people and they're fumbling through the missal whatever. And you just kind of like, you have your missal open, you just kind of tap on them a little bit and like, hey, check it out. This is where we're at. And I think most trads are willing to do that. I don't think I've ever met a really mad trad.
That's because they wouldn't have any friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because they would completely ruin the beauty of the Mass for themselves.
Yeah, that's not to say that they're not out there.
No, of course not.
But I think for the majority of the people you're going to run into, they're not the stigma trad,
Most people are happy that you are discovering the traditional liturgy.
Absolutely.
And also, here's the thing. It's like, the analogy I'll give is this. When you go to the gym for the first time, you don't know how to do any exercises really, except push-ups, and you've seen a pull-up on TV. And you feel like everyone's going to be watching you. I'm out of shape. I'm this guy's huge. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. This guy is counting his calories, and I don't know any of that kind of stuff. Here's the reality of the matter. You even yourself can't remember what your checkout girl at the grocery store looked like. Chances are that you've probably seen someone at the gym who's new, and it doesn't affect you. And if they ask you for help, you'd happily give them help. This is the exact same when it comes to the Mass. There's going to be people who are new that might not get it. But if they're showing reverence, it doesn't bother you one bit. In fact, you're happy if you have that ability to help them, because you're all pitching for the same side. You're all trying to give glory to God. Where else do you want someone who is lost on the Mass to be on a Sunday morning? Not there. I mean, that'd be absurd. Living in Los Angeles and kind of in the culture that we're in, we're reclaiming a lot of, I think, very key Catholic culture points. That includes how to dress. That includes reverence. There are always new parishioners and people filtering in and out of traditional liturgies who aren't fully understanding of all the dynamics going on at Mass, perhaps. So you see people who dress differently. You see people who don't quite know where everything's going on. But I've always had this kind of thing where, of all places for someone to be on a Sunday, where else would you want them?
Yeah.
Even if they're not dressed, the most modestly or reverently or something.
Mm-hmm.
These are those little traditions that can grow in with time. And if their hearts are wired to God, if they're really trying to give him the glory, that stuff just comes naturally. What's nice about our parish, and I think what's good about the traditional movement that's rising, is that it is actual inclusion. I'm putting quotation marks around, not the sort of inclusion that we're seeing in other parts of the church.
It's just blind.
Yeah, just this blind acceptance and tolerance.
Yep.
It's by understanding its beauty and reverence, it wants everybody at the table. So our church, for instance, there's never been a time I've looked in the bulletin where it says, like, if you have to dress like this, you have to stand up, sit down here, all that kind of stuff. But it's the natural culture of being part of, I think it's a very fraternity parish kind of culture thing, but it seems to be across a lot of different traditional kind of parts of the church.
Yeah, I think it develops over time, and I would say nobody's a professional right off the gate. You don't, if I could piggyback off your gym example, is what I meant to say. You don't pop into the gym the first time you ever, got a gym membership and you start benching 350.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen. It's impossible. I mean, maybe it is, but you're going to hurt yourself, you know? I think that it develops over time. Going to a traditional Latin mass doesn't make you a trad immediately.
Yeah.
Being a trad is like a cultural thing too. The way that you live your faith outside of the church. How do you live that in your day-to-day life? Do you bring it up at work?
Oh yeah,
that's an important one too. Yeah. And I think we're coming up to a time where it's time to take off all the masks.
Yeah,
we can no longer operate in the shadows anymore. We're Catholic, and the culture. It's backwards now. People think that the culture should form the way that you believe. It's directly the opposite. It was never like that.
Yeah.
Our faith was what formed the culture. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now, where it's like everything seems kind of backwards, like, where am I? How do I fit into this? The reality is that we have to shape the culture, and I think it starts with having a solid liturgy.
Absolutely.
Solid liturgy. Absolutely. Because if you don't have that, I don't know. I mean, you're having energy drinks for dinner.
Yeah.
You're running off a 24-hour energy shot. Which is, by the way, our sponsor. Just kidding.
If they want to be, though. Running off energy drinks. Yeah, it was cute when you were a teenager, but it's been 50 years, and now you're a little old and really wired up, and now it's time to...
Yeah, your kidney kind of hurts a little bit.
Time to eat something that's going to be good for you.
Yeah, you need a couple vegetables.
That's right. A couple vegetables. Listen to what your mom said. Listen to your mother, just like we're listening to our mother, Yeah. This is something... So if you are discerning, shall we say, I'm not being fed where I'm at in my own spiritual life. And I think I want to attend a Latin Mass. First off, figure out if that's even possible. For a lot of us still, Latin Mass parishes, whether they're fraternity or diocesan, are popping up a lot of different places. And now we're actually really spoiled. Our parents' generation, it was like scattered to the four winds. Now it's like, it's just such a option, skip and a jump up from us. But, if something is 2 hours away, really kind of determine if that's the thing that you absolutely need. Obviously, take your family's considerations into account. From there, be prepared not just to go because of the smells and the bells, which is, I think, a criticism you'll hear a lot of times, which we have to be mindful of. It's true.
Yeah.
Am I going here because I get to dunk on Novus Ordoites every chance I get?
Am I going here for aesthetics?
Yeah. Is my internal disposition still the same, and now I just get to be a triumphalist in the wrong way?
Yeah.
Or am I really trying to give glory and honor to God the way that he deserves glory and honor, as close as humanly possible as we can give him? So internal disposition is everything. It's absolutely everything, which is why you will see different people in the Mass. There are some people who pray rosaries in Mass, right? You hear about that kind of silly little criticism. And the answer is that they're completely wired into what's happening on the altar.
Yep.
They don't need to know every single part of the Confiteor in order to absolutely agree and pray alongside the priest to give glory and honor to God. So these are just a couple of things. Now, that was all the nice, good stuff. And
that's the feel good.
That's a feel good. We're glad trads, as we say.
Want to leave you with a feel good feeling. You know?
That's right.
Just kind of go. Maybe you're driving, somewhere right now. You're listening to us in your car. And you're having a stressful commute.
Yeah, we're trying to help.
Hopefully, that was just a little bit of heaven.
Listen to that nice music. But now it's the real meat and bones. For 2 minutes, it is now time for Mad Trads.
Mad trads. I mean, there's also plenty to get mad at.
Mad trads. So for those real quick, the Mad Trad part of the podcast, we have 2 minutes and we just get to vent. Just a real quick, the facade of glad, not the facade of glad trads. We are really glad trads. But we're going to have a little bit of fun because what's a little bit of Catholicism without a little bit of fun? All right, the clock has started now. What are we talking about?
Well, I'm sure you heard some of the news that's causing quite a splash.
Oh, a splash.
Wink, splash.
My mama told me about that a little bit ago. Mama, splash. Ooh.
My mom's name is Patch.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding. She's not. But, some of the criticisms that we've been hearing of these really heroes.
They're
I'm
heroes.
Gonna call them
They're
heroes.
Crusaders, and God loves them.
I'm gonna call them heroes. The heroes of the Tiber.
Yeah, heroes. That's a great.
Heroes of the Tiber.
It's
like a video game.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's so many criticisms of these guys. Like, oh, they went in there, they stole, they broke in.
How could they do this?
They didn't break in. It was open.
It was open.
And they threw out these like horrible wooden idols.
They're idols. They're actually
it's so
idols.
obvious. And people keep saying, "Oh, well, it's the Blessed Mother and Saint Elizabeth." It's like, no, it's not. The Vatican said this is not a representation of our Blessed Mother.
Yeah, they're going. It's Our Lady of the Amazon. Yeah, it is not. We do not do depictions of Our Lady 2D and naked, by the way, with her womb open. And by the way, no Christ in the womb too. Yeah. Let's get real for a second here. They're heroes, absolutely. I want a picture. I want them. I think one day we're gonna see them like Taylor Marshall. Maybe like a couple years from now. It'll be like, yeah, we did it. They're not gonna get excommunicated. God bless them. They're heroes. They're being protected by our mother. Yeah, listen, you're gonna hear this all the time that there was a violation of church property. How could they do this? Here's the thing. As Roman Catholics, we have a diligence to the first commandment.
Absolutely.
How long have we been telling Protestants that we don't pray to the saints, the statues, all that kind of stuff? So
Wait, we don't?
Oh, did the secret? Oh, sorry, dude. So if you see idolatry in your parish, of course. Oh, the 2 minute. See if I mean the 2 minute hates up.
Well, I think we started a little later.
Okay, we'll wrap up real quick. Let's keep going.
Let's get mad.
Idolatry is a very, very serious sin. It is breaking the first commandment. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. You will not have any gods before me. That includes golden calves. That includes Pachamamas, by the way, in case anyone needs to know. What we need to do as good sons of the church is we need to pray, of course, for all the people involved in these idolatrous rituals. That's not just the natives who brought this here, or maybe were sent it, who knows. But it also includes the cardinals and the bishops and others who are unfortunately alongside this plan. Idolatry is a very serious sin. If there's idolatry in your church, you as a Catholic have an obligation to Holy Mother Church to defend the church against such things. Also, why not just St. Boniface something? He cut down that pagan tree, that Thor tree, and looked real cool doing it.
Giant oak.
Don't you want to be like St. Boniface?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's gotten to the point where we have to do this. Mm-hmm. We have to fight back.
Yeah.
Our churches are being taken from us.
Yeah.
And we're just along for the ride. Nah, I don't think so. Not anymore.
That's right.
No.
That's absolutely right.
That was our first episode.
That was our first episode.
We want to thank you for spending time with us and hearing us out. If you're considering possibly attending a Latin Mass, there's some good resources that you can check out. One of them is, I believe it's called Latin Mass Finder.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
You can find a Latin Mass around you. And if you're fortunate to live in the United States has had really an explosive growth, as we mentioned initially.
Explosive, yeah.
Of the traditional rite, and there's a lot of different parishes that are offering that. So check out Latin Mass Finder.
It's also very good because it tells you the affiliation of the Latin Mass, which is very important. We are fraternity Latin Mass people. On the app, you can also see if something's diocesan. If something's unaffiliated, which I would advise you to be very careful of. You do not want to stumble into a Society of Pius V because you'll probably get, that's the place you'll probably get, those are probably mad trads. You'll probably get eaten up. You won't survive. They can probably smell the Novus Ordo on you. I'm not going to say anything good or anything bad at this moment about the Society of Pius X. But you can see the affiliation of whatever chapel or parish that you are planning on visiting. So if that's what you want to do, again, Latin Mass Finder is the app that you want, and it will get you exactly where you need to go if you are timed to crossing the Tiber, this time in Latin. Thank you guys so much for listening to our first podcast. We hope that God blesses you and rewards you in all the things that you do. Remember to be praying the rosary constantly. We are at war, and you too need to be a glad trad. The army, the Church Militant, is on the rise, on the move, and we need all the people.
Take up some spiritual arms.
If you see any Pachamamas, don't be afraid to throw them in a Tiber. It's totally okay. God loves you for it.
Absolutely. And now is the time to pick up the rosary, which is the ultimate weapon.
The greatest weapon that God has given us.
We got our backs to the mountain here. We got nowhere else to go. It's about time that we melt down our plowshares again and we beat them up into swords.
That's right. And our swords are beautiful rosaries. You see those gun steel ones? Real quick, you see those ones made out of like gun steel? Those beautiful battle rosaries. Those are the ones I don't care what anyone says. Those are the ones I believe the Padre Pio wrapped around his knuckles to fight the devil with.
Padre Pio, who once said, "Bring me my weapon."
That's right.
He was referring to the rosary.
Oh, what a Chad.
Every single day of the year, you got to pray that.
That's right. Absolutely
That's
right.
a non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Welcome to the battlefield, son.
Yep.
Until next time, we're here at Glad Chad Podcast. God bless you. Mary keep you. Adios.